Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Dime Time. This time we are talking about the NBA Finals version 3.0, the Warriors versus the Cavaliers. Now, the Warriors and the Cavaliers have made it to the NBA Finals for the third time in a row. Even the Lakers and Celtics, these monsters who've been in the NBA Finals together 11 times, have never made it three times in a row. And by doing this, the Warriors and the Cavaliers both silenced their doubters, right? On the Cavaliers side, these are the same doubters that thought that the Cavaliers were done because they finished their season 23 and 23. That they thought it was unfair that LeBron had to again carry his team all the way to the finals. And that, Kyrie and Kevin Love were not the kind of sidekicks that he should have had. Or were not even remotely the players they were last season. They were the same doubters that said that LeBron was playing way too many minutes and that he would show up for the playoffs tired. Well, none of that is true, right? None of that has happened. As a matter of fact, the Cavaliers actually thumped their way to a 12-1 record in the playoffs, only facing a minor setback when they lost to the Celtics in that really, really close, in my opinion, one of the greatest playoff games ever played. And on the Warriors side, these are the same doubters that said that super team, the Warriors super team, was an overkill when they started the season with 4-2. These are the same guys that said that Steph Curry was done because he was being overshadowed by Kevin Durant. These are the same doubters that said that in the wake of the Kevin Durant injury, Curry and Thompson were so used to having Durant on the floor that they ended up slumping and suffering with their shooting numbers. Well, we all know what happened, right? The Warriors slapped a 15-1 streak at the end of their season to finish with 67 wins. I can only imagine what they would have finished with if Durant was healthy for those 21 games. But they finished for those 20 games. But they finished their season with 15-1, 67 wins, and just absolutely ripped apart the playoffs, their Western Conference rivals in the playoffs by going 4-4-4, the very famous Moses Malone line. Of course, that also was helped by that MVP level play by Zaza Pachulia against the Spurs. Now, coming to the Cavs and coming to the numbers that both these guys have, I think these numbers are mouth-watering, right? If you see them across the playoffs, they are so neck and neck. It is incredible. Now, the Cavaliers can match the Warriors offensively, right? Both teams are coming into the playoffs. Both teams are coming into the finals 100% healthy. So, expect the Cavaliers to bring the fight to the Warriors on the offensive end. Defensively, though, is where I think this series is going to be won. Now, if you look at the defensive numbers across the board, it seems like the Cavaliers have marginally better numbers than the Warriors, right? For example, opponents have scored just 13.5 points off turnovers against the Cavaliers. They've scored just 11 second chance points. They've scored just 42 points in the paint. Whereas you compare that to the Warriors, where off turnovers, opponents were scoring 16 points. Second chance points were close to 13 points a game, and in the paint they were getting outscored. Teams were scoring nearly 44 points a game. So there were marginal differences. The Cavs look marginally better than the Warriors defensively. But the question here is what kind of competition the Cavaliers average those numbers against, right? No matter how you look at it, the Indiana Pacers, the Raptors without Kyle Lowry, and the Celtics without Thomas are nothing compared to what the Warriors had to go through in the Trailblazers, in the Utah Jazz, and sure, the Spurs without Kawhi Leonard. It is still, the competition that they had was still significantly better. Another key interesting point between these teams is the transition game, because that's where the difference lies, right? Offensively, if you make a mistake against any of these teams, they will ruin you. They will destroy you, whether it is transition threes, whether it is lob passes, cross-court lob passes, or whether it is Durant or Kevin Durant or LeBron James taking the ball coast to coast. These guys will absolutely destroy you if you make a mistake on the other end. Transition defense, though, is where they are slightly different, because the Cavs have slightly better half-court defense. But in an open court, transition defense-wise, the Warriors are absolutely dominate the Cavaliers. And this is, usually numbers don't necessarily portray this very accurately, but this is more an eye test. When you watch these two teams, you'll notice how much more better the Warriors are on transition in defense than the Cavaliers. The most interesting chasm, though, the most interesting difference between these two teams is how the Cavaliers in the playoffs have got the highest offensive rating. Now, an offensive rating and a defensive rating. Offensive rating is number of points scored per 100 possessions. And of course, defensive rating is number of points scored against you per 100 possessions. So in that case, the Cavaliers actually lead all teams in the playoffs with 120.7 points a game offensively. And defensively, the Warriors lead everybody at 99.1 points a game. So that difference of about 20 points is really interesting. But again, it was largely due to the really poor quality of competition that the Cavaliers had to go through in the East. During the regular season, both these teams split their games, right? And you got to see pretty much everything that you would think that you would see. Both teams, between the two teams, they feature 4 of the 10 best players. I would say 5 of the 10 best players in the league, right? It featured LeBron James deciding to win a game when he wanted to take over. That was the game on Christmas Day when he absolutely, he took over that game in the second half. And of course, then we are talking about the Warriors' stifling defense and the blistering offense that they're capable of in the blowout win in January. If those two games are any indication of how the series is going to go, expect this series to go 7. Now, everything about the Cavaliers suggests they are hitting their peak just at the right time. Whether it's Kyrie Irving, who is scoring 25.8 points a game, and his shooting numbers are just off the charts. That Celtics series, he averaged 62% from the field, 50% from three-point line, and over 90% from the free throw line. So Kevin Love, for his part, proved in that Celtics series why LeBron chased him so hard 3 seasons ago. He averaged 23 points, 12 rebounds, and shot 49% from the field, 54% from three-point line. Insane. And 87% from the free throw line. For both Kyrie and Kevin Love, those shooting numbers against the against the Celtics were significantly higher than their season averages. And LeBron, well, is LeBron. Because Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love stepped up against the Celtics, his numbers dipped ever so little. But again, in that last game against the Celtics, he finished with 35 points, 8 assists, 8 rebounds, and he missed just 5 of his shots from the field after shooting 18 shots. The Cavaliers have largely remained intact from last season, right? They've got marginal upgrades, and one of those upgrades is Durant Williams, who, in my opinion, has found some semblance of that magic that made him a top 5 point guard a few years ago. He manages that second unit really, really well. Both Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love are playing far better than they were playing far better now than they were playing at the same time last season. So for the Warriors, there's no surprise here. I just feel that the Cavaliers were absolutely merciless during the 2017 playoffs and can taste blood in the water in their quest to win a second championship back-to-back. The knock on the Cavaliers, of course, once again I'm saying, is the quality of competition they have faced. Whether it was the Pacers, whether it was the Raptors who didn't have Lowry, whether it was Celtics who didn't have Thomas. However, detractors would do well to remember that the Cavaliers were in the same situation last year, right? It's not like their competition was great last year. And they had a 12-2 record. They just lost 2 games to a Toronto team that had 2 stars. Yet they showed up to the finals absolutely prepared to take on the Warriors. Sure, they went down 3-1, but they took advantage of the Draymond Green suspension, absolutely destroyed them in Game 5, and then came back to create history by not just winning the NBA Finals after being down 3-1, but by beating a 73-win record-breaking team. In my opinion, though, what this NBA Finals boils down to is legacy. That is what is at stake here. For Kyrie Irving, a second back-to-back championship establishes his credibility and his legacy as one of the greatest sidekicks in NBA history. For Draymond Green, a championship this season purges him of that embarrassing groin gate controversy that happened last season and puts him in conversation for one of the 20 greatest power forwards in NBA history. For Curry, a second championship will aid his eventual legacy to surpassing Ray Allen as the greatest shooter in NBA history. For Kevin Durant, his first championship will establish his credibility as one of the 10 greatest forwards ever in NBA history. You can ask Karl Malone and Charles Barkley why this is important. For the Cavaliers, they become a beacon of hope in a city that suffered one of the worst championship droughts in the history of professional sport until LeBron James delivered the 2016 NBA championship. For the Warriors, they get to take revenge for that humiliating loss they faced in the last year finals. The most important legacy at stake here is this legacy of LeBron James, because a second championship with the Cavaliers. He's fourth overall, in my opinion, pushes LeBron into a conversation for the one of the five best players in NBA history. At the end of the day, though, the same 73-win Warriors team from last year are coming into the playoffs 100% healthy. They look marginally better, and they just happen to have added this really skinny dude who is one of the 10 greatest, purest scorers in NBA history. He's pretty good. In my opinion, Warriors in 6. Thank you for watching. If you think you got something better to say, please leave a comment, and yes, definitely check out my other playoff previews.